Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Hump with Katie. I'm your host, Katie Thiroux, and today I'm happy to bring you an awesome twofer episode, 2 for 1, with bassists Marco Panascia and Danny Ziemann. If you're new to The Hump, this is a series where I interview some of the world's most talented artists and musicians and find out why are they so amazing, how did it all happen, and ultimately what can we learn from their journey. Before I bring you today's amazing episode, I'd love to thank our sponsors, and first up we have the clothing company Jams World. You guys, I absolutely love Jams World. I'm wearing a Jams World right now, of course, and the reason why I love it is because the fabric is made from 100% spun crushed rayon, and it keeps me cool and comfortable. They've been making clothing in Honolulu, Hawaii since 1964, and the artwork is so unique. It's screen printed right onto the fabric, and it looks like a piece of art. Go to jamsworld.com and use the promo code JAZZ15, and you'll get 15% off your entire online purchase. Next up, I'd like to thank Kolstein's String Shop. I absolutely love Kolstein's. They are doing amazing things for the bass community. They have 2 amazing locations in Long Island, New York, and a killer online store. Go to kolstein.com and use the promo code KD10 and you'll get 10% off your entire purchase. All right, it's time to bring you today's episode with 2 incredible bassists, Marco Panascia and Danny Ziemann. You're wondering, why do we have 2 bassists today? Well, why not? What's better than 1 bass player than 2 or 3, 4, 5, or 6? That's fine with me as well. This episode came about by way of Kolstein's Music. They're hosting an online concert series called the Living Room Series. Danny and Marco performed a duo concert a few weeks ago. I'm going to put links to that below. It was so much fun. It's amazing. And it was great to have 2 bass players just talking bass, chatting. I hadn't met Marco before, so it was really cool to learn about his upbringing and how he learned music and his views on electric bass and upright. The 3 of us talked a whole lot of bass, a lot about music education, and we bring in coffee at some point because that's important to all 3 of us. So without further ado, I bring you this week's episode with Marco Panascia and Danny Ziemann. And so for you, Marco, what was your experience like growing up?
Yeah, well, everything started when I was like about 8 years old. I started taking classical piano lessons. And at the time, I was like this kid growing up in Italy. I was like into all the stuff that kids are all about in Italy, like playing soccer or, just doing like kid stuff, So the lessons went on. I mean, but I was not really thrilled about them. I didn't really have a real interest in the piano. But then in retrospect, I realized, how really useful it was, for my musical upbringing. Because first of all, I mean, it gave me a really nice foundation when it comes to music theory and like, all basics, the building blocks of being a professional musician. And also, I'm grateful that it taught me how to read in bass clef. Mm-hmm. Because then, when I, because of the left hand of the piano, that's written in bass clef. So when I started playing the bass a few years later, I already had most of my reading together, from the piano. So I was able to focus more on the technique and instead of having to multitask, like learning how to read and at the same time learning technique and how to play the instrument. The fact that I already had most of my reading together really helped me focus directly on the technical aspects of playing the bass, which was a really huge advantage point. And so that was it. I played piano for like 5-6 years. And then when I was about 16 years old, in my high school, there was a rock band being formed in my class here with my classmates. And so this classmate of mine was selling like $50, beat up electric bass, very unknown brand.
Yeah.
Strings were like, mile high action, pretty impossible to play with a warped neck and everything. But, I took up their offer and so I just started playing the bass, just like randomly, like it was like a punk rock kind of thing, and then when I was about 20 years old, that's when I started playing the upright bass. So I was kind of a late bloomer because I know that in the US, people generally start playing, when they're, in high school or middle school. But for me, it was like, I was definitely more of a late bloomer in that department. And so that's kind of how things got started. And for me, really grateful about John Patitucci because he basically was the one that lit the spark for me to make it happen, in terms of like starting to play the upright. It was about 1991, 92, something like that. I was 19 years old at the time. And at the time, John was very popular as a fusion electric bass player with this, Ken Smith, 6-string, playing with Chick Corea, the electric band and all that. So, we expected him, he came to my hometown for a concert. It was his first tour as a leader.
And sorry, where's your hometown?
It's Catania in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, southern Italy. So he came to my hometown for playing this concert. And so we all expected him, to show up, with a 6-string electric bass and have this like big fusion fest of a concert. But no, he only showed up with his Pullman, with his road bass at the time. And so it was a beautiful, amazing, fully acoustic concert on the upright bass. And, my jaw like dropped, that night I couldn't like sleep. It was like it was like, wow, what did I just see? And then the next morning, I was like, I talked to my parents and was like, please, would you buy me an upright bass? I really want to get started on this instrument. So every time I run into John in, schools or festivals or what have you, I always tell him, how grateful I am, that he was like the one who ignited, that spark and kind of made it happen for me to, to get started on the instrument.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you see something like that, it's life-changing.
Yeah, totally. So that was what made it happen. How about you, Danny? What was the spark that made it happen?
Oh man, I used to play the violin actually, and in middle school I had a teacher, Joan Boysenalt, and she came up to me. She's like, "Hey, we have no bass players in orchestra. Do you wanna play?" I was like, "No." And she's like, "Well, your friends are gonna do it too." I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." So she tricked me into it. And then she introduced me to a bass player in town named Wayne Moose. And at that point, I had a dual career going. I was a blossoming upright bass player at 11, but I was also a closeted heavy metal guitarist. I would like practice for 5-6 hours a day. No one really knew. I grew my hair out long. It's like wearing Metallica shirts, just like practicing tapping and sweep picking and all this stuff. And my teacher was like, "Listen, you're not going to have a career as a heavy metal guitarist. I'm sorry. But if you learn to play jazz, you'll always work." I was like 11 or 12. And he's like, "You may not make a ton of money." He's like, "But you'll definitely make more than heavy metal." I was like, "Okay, I'm sold." So, that it sort of broke my heart that I wasn't going to be able to, tour with Ozzy Osbourne or Metallica or anything. But that was kind of it. I kind of had a pretty straightforward path through playing. I still remember my first record was a John Coltrane compilation, and then I got Ray Brown. Some of my best friends are the guitarists, and some of my best friends are the singers. Those were like the first 2 Ray Brown records I ever got. And that just kind of had me hooked on it. I don't know. I think, but the funny thing is, Marco, you came to it later in life, and I think you had an immediate spark and like really, really loved it and more motivation. I putzed around for quite a few years, like just saying, "Oh, Samantha's boring," or like, "This is dumb. Like, I don't want to practice. I want to go outside and like practice skateboarding or something." Yeah. So I had probably 8 years of practice that resulted in like maybe it's the equivalent of 1 or 2 years of concentrated study. So I played the bass my whole life, but seriously, like just until probably around 20 is when I really started putting the time in.
That's okay. Yeah. And it's I mean, the time is cumulative, right? But I just had someone ask me the other day, like they were like maybe in their 40s. They're like, can I get good at bass? I was like, yeah, you just have to put the time in. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are. Absolutely not. But that's great advice that someone gave you to not play guitar. I had someone else on the show. He's primarily a vibes player, Christian Tamber, and he saw Pat Metheny when he was 8, and his teacher took him back to meet him, and he was playing guitar, and Pat Metheny was like, "You see all the people behind me?" He's like, "You should do that. Pick one of those instruments." And he was like, he was right, because he was like, you're not gonna make it. But not gonna make it. But it's nice to hear that, the truth when you're that young.
Yeah, I mean, it sucked because I really did, like, at that time, my first concert I ever went to was Metallica and Rage Against the Machine. Like, I was like, I want to play in a stadium where they set off fireworks. Like, that's awesome. It's just like that dream came crashing down. But that experience of learning guitar really helped a lot of my bass playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, Marco, like you've played when I've come to visit and we've played before. Like you sat down at the piano and played, and like you've got serious chops. Like you can definitely play tunes and like really get inside the piano very well. And I know that informs a lot of just your core musicianship. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's been so helpful. I mean, in terms of like when I see the bass, I actually see a piano keyboard, instead of the fingerboard. I have really a pianistic kind of conception of the instrument. So yeah, it's definitely good, to have like an alternate instrument, kind of help you out, with the way you see the bass, and it's uniquely your own. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to ask. Marco, I was also curious, like where you grew up. I know like John Patitucci would come, but was there a lot of music happening that you could be a part of or go see while you were growing up that helped you be a part of the music as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I cut my teeth, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I gained a lot of experience, just like playing, local bars and pubs. I would have a band, where we would like mix up jazz standards, with funk, that kind of thing, So it was definitely an important part of my musical upbringing and musical education. Because I mean, we all know that we all went to school, Berklee, Eastman, MSM, and what have you, and it was definitely helpful. We know that, but we also know that a lot of our education comes directly from like being on the bandstand, with other, good musicians and peers. And that's basically where you learn most of your like real life stuff. Yeah. So that's the way it was for me, for sure.
And I also would like to ask you about, I mean, you studied with Kaye. So how did that happen?
Yeah, well, it happened. We met in 2000 at the NAMM show. So, we're just, jammed with her, played a couple of tunes with her, and we stayed in touch. And then I found out about the Henry Mancini Institute, which you probably heard. I mean, did you go there, Katie?
No, I don't think it was around when I was coming up.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the Henry Mancini Institute was basically this like summer program that would happen at UCLA. So basically, they would put an orchestra together by audition. It was like kind of a pops orchestra kind of concept, like a core, classical thing to it, but there was also a rhythm section. So for the bass player, it was like an amazing thing, because we would take turns playing the double bass in the section, behind the cellos.
Mm-hmm.
And then each one of us, would spend a week, as a rhythm section player, either playing upright or electric bass, like kind of in the middle of the orchestra, right up front. So it was an amazing experience, and Carol was the electric bass teacher there, and we also had Bert Turetsky. So it was, I basically did it 3 times in 2000, 2001, and 2005. So it was an amazing networking experience, and I learned a ton, from Carol and Bert. And then we had a lot of great visiting teachers that we could have private lessons with. So we had Nathan East, then we had your mentor, John Clayton. I took a couple of lessons with him, and he taught me more in those 2 lessons, that I've learned in my whole life. It was pretty amazing. A lot of the stuff that he told me really resonates with me, to this day, and I use it, when I do my own teaching. I mean, you probably know all about that. And so yeah, that's how this thing came together. And so I spent like 3 summers in LA. I really loved it there. I thought about moving there for the longest time, but I guess it hasn't happened, maybe at some point.
Yeah.
But I just, you guys have the best weather in the country, and there's no denying about that. Yeah.
Well, that's so cool that you got to study with Kaye. I mean, what a historic person, what a historic bass player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's taught me a lot, her whole conception about, like playing quarterly as opposed to like, relying on scales is definitely something that stuck with me. And, she was always very sweet. We developed, this like as I mentioned to Danny before, she was like sort of like a surrogate American mother to me. When I would get sick, she would like call me up and say, "Hey, have you taken your aspirin?" That kind of thing. And we also both love cats. So we both have cats. So it was nice to have this relationship develop. Beyond just like the musical thing. But it was like a real mentorship in terms of like really caring for each other.
It's cool when you meet people too, way later on in their career, right? Like, I mean, she started a long time ago. So to meet someone at that stage and to have a relationship at that point is really special.
Absolutely. Yeah. She, definitely learned a lot.
Yeah. And I know both of you are into teaching and education. I mean, Danny, how do you have like 1,000 books out by now?
10,000.
Okay, 10,000. Yeah. No, but really, you have like 5 at least, right?
Yeah, five. So 4 bass books and 1 co-written book on teaching. Few coloring books, but those aren't.
Oh yeah, you should do paint by numbers with different basses and things.
Definitely, the history of Fender P basses and paint by numbers.
Yeah. So what is it that brought you both to want to teach and want to share?
I'll just jump in. I think I didn't really know that I had a choice about being a teacher or not. I think I was always surrounded by good examples of teaching in my life. Maybe not always with music, but I think as I got into studying the bass, I think I was just kind of, I don't want to say I was destined, but I was always kind of encouraged to look into teaching. And it was funny. I never really considered a career in performing. I always just like thought it was in service of teaching. Obviously when I got older, it's like, oh, I love playing and I love teaching. So I think I was fortunate to have good examples of teachers around me. And then when I went to college, it's like, okay, I'll get an education degree and performance. And I loved it. Like teaching is great because it allows me to connect with people one-on-one, which I really value. I mean, I got a degree in public school education, and I did teach elementary school orchestra for a little bit, high school. Yeah, I even had to substitute for a high school health class. And let me tell you, if there's something that's like your own version of hell, that was it for me. It's like, no way would I ever want to do that again. It was not worth the substitute paycheck for that day. But I very quickly figured out that like I like working with people one-on-one. I like taking the fellow traveler approach, and kind of standing against that hierarchical teaching that can happen, where it's like, I am the teacher and you must respect me because I am your teacher. It's like, don't enjoy that very much at all. So yeah, and then with the books, I had students who, when I was teaching at SUNY Oswego, it's a college kind of north of Syracuse, had students who needed books for different topics, like how do I walk bass lines, how do I do this and that, and it's just like I'll just make one up on my own. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just write a book. Like, as quickly as the thought entered my mind, it was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. And then a year later, I was like, I'm never doing this again, because I had no idea what it entailed. And then caught the bug. Marco was gracious enough to write the foreword to my second book, which was awesome. That's another thing that brought us closer, because we were able to, talk about teaching and have this awesome connection. And then, yeah, it just kept on kind of snowballing from there. And I think it's great because the writing part really gives me an opportunity to clarify exactly how I teach something, which really does help me when I'm working in person. It's just this kind of curiosity too about the learning process. And now that I'm seeing, a lot of my students are adults, I really feel like most of the educational materials or the research out there about how people learn, especially in music, is geared towards kids. I feel like adults, there's less in service of their learning needs. So like, I'm really curious about like, how can I help people who are like 60 and want to play jazz gigs? Like, what can I do for them? Like, how can
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like this curiosity that kind of feeds everything. Um, but yeah, and Marco, like I know you're teaching at the new school, or you were teaching in the new school, but you're taking on a lot of private
Yeah.
students
They
and
send me students, from time to time. I'm like on the roster of adjunct, based teachers, that the students can choose from. So, from time to time, I get students, and it's really nice, because I can teach, from the comfort of my own home, and then, I submit all the gradings and stuff, via email, so I don't even have to go there in person, which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you want to teach, Marco?
Well, for me, it's all about the um I mean, now that, I guess, I'm older, like I'm 48 now, so um I guess for me it's all about mostly about the concept of just like, passing it on, passing it forward. I've had so many mentors, that have been really gracious with their time and with their advice. So I feel it's only, fair for me to do the same and help out, younger bass players, started playing, after me, and kind of giving back, all the amazing pieces of information that I've been given, by all the great teachers that I've studied with, So yeah, it's really, for me, the name of the game is really like, passing it forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, because time, you can't get time back. Like, you can make money, you can give money, but like the time, even if someone's, paying you for lessons, it's invaluable to somebody. And I know Ray Brown would always tell John Clayton, someone gave this information to me, I'm giving it to you. So you have to give it. It's
Yeah,
up to
exactly.
you to give it
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a, definitely a privilege, that kind of, I guess it just comes with it. You've been fortunate to get it, and then you have to give it back. It's just, part of how life works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I see 10 electric basses, I think, in the background. This is like an I Spy. And I know you guys are both such talented bass players. And I know you, Marco, play a lot of wide varieties of music. So, and I'm guessing that's why there's 10 basses. Do you have a
I,
problem?
yeah, no, that's only part of the collection. There's like about 12 more like in the bedroom, Yeah, I have a problem, I'm a bass hoarder. Yeah,
Okay.
I admit it, I definitely have to consult, with a doctor about that. It's a huge problem. And also I really I really suffer from gas, which is gear acquisition syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
In case you're not familiar with it. But yeah, I mean, the deal with me is that, I started out as an electric bass player, then I started playing the upright. And the deal, with the, straight ahead jazz scene is that band leaders demand the upright bass. I mean, they really don't want any electric, in their bands. I don't know if it's more of a sound thing or a visual thing. I mean, I do get it that when you're playing a walking line, I mean, of course, it's going to sound fatter and nicer on the upright bass, but for me, it's like really impossible to kind of choose one instrument over the other because I just love them equally. And that's why, as much as jazz, will always be my first love, I kind of got a little frustrated about the fact that if I stuck, with straight ahead jazz 100%, then I would have had to give up, my electric playing altogether, because there's very few band leaders that are open to the idea of having a bass player that doubles, in their
Mm-hmm.
bands. So that's why I started kind of branching out. I've been doing a lot of subbing on Broadway lately because the nice thing about Broadway is that most of the shows are doubling shows. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to basically go back and forth between upright and electric bass. And so originally I did it because I was like, okay, at least, this venture is going to give me the opportunity to keep my chops up on both instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem, that I was having, with like just playing straight ahead was that sometimes, 2 or 3 months would go by without me touching the electric bass. And, but now, I think I definitely managed to balance both, playing both instruments out, which for me means a lot, because I really love both.
Yeah, with anything, there can be a stigma, right? They're like, oh, you can't be a straight ahead bass player if you play electric, or vice versa. And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
not true. I mean, you mentioned John Patitucci and people like Derek Hodge. That it's you're the instrument, right? You
yeah,
are the
exactly.
instrument. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah, yeah.
what you play.
But yeah, most band leaders are smart enough to understand that it's about the player, not the acts.
Yeah,
It's really what you bring. And so, whenever people like, they give me a hard time, if I tell them that I want to play electric on their gig, I'm like, hey, look, it's the same bass player that you're hiring.
mm-hmm.
So it's still me. It's still me. If you
Yeah,
like what I do on the upright, don't worry. It will still be me.
yeah.
It's
But
not like I turn into this like other, musician, altogether.
I just imagine you showing up with like 20 electric basses though, and
Right.
switching like every tune just to mess with somebody.
Yeah, no, probably not. I wouldn't do that. It's generally, if it's a doubling thing, I just like, pick one.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
No, that's great. I I won't take up too much more of your time, but I'd love to know. Well, I can't. This is going to air during your performance, so I can't wait to see it. What's going to happen? But what's up next for both of you? I know things are, they were COVID, and then things are getting better, and now we're not really sure what's happening now. But is anything on the horizon for either of you? New projects or anything?
Well, I don't know how much I can say about this officially, but I will say indirectly, or I'll try to speak around it. I was offered a job at a university in Austria somewhere teaching jazz ear training, and solfege and ensembles and stuff, um, at a school with a great reputation and some international faculty. So still in the process of formalizing that, but that's going to be starting in October, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. It involves a 2 hour train ride through the mountains to an unnamed city, but anyone who knows about Austrian geography will be able to piece it together.
It's
Um,
like you're going to the Bat Cave.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I've left space camp and I am now going to the Batcave. Um, so yeah, so I'm doing that, and otherwise just enjoying after vacation, just enjoying reacclimation back to Austria, and just looking forward to playing again. I mean, now that it's possible, now that the more people are vaccinated and we're following precautions, like I just can't wait to get my butt in a club and play more and hopefully start doing more touring. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. But how about you, Marco?
Yeah, well, luckily things, are getting started, for me again, like I've been doing a bunch of remote recordings, as we all have, like, during the pandemic. Then a couple, 2, 3 times a month, Mike Stern invites me over to jam at his place, which is something that I always treasure, because he's just amazing. We just spend 2, 3 hours, just like playing tunes, having some coffee, and then going back to playing,
Oh,
that
that's the
kind of thing.
best.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, definitely learning a lot from this experience, and also in April, this record was released by Dan Wilson. He's a great guitar player, and it was come to be known, for his associations with Monty Alexander and Jody Francesco and Christian McBride. And he's actually a member of Christian McBride's trio called Tip City, that features him and Emmett Coleman on piano. And so basically, Christian, he started his new independent label called Brother Mister, and it's affiliated with Mac Avenue. And so he offered Dan, a recording contract. And so we recorded this album. It was me, Dan, Jeff Tane Watts, and Christian Sands. We recorded it like about 2 years ago, and it finally was released in April. So now we've been doing a bunch of touring here and there to promote this recording, and it's definitely an honor. I really look up to Christian. Is my idol. One of my very favorite bass players that I've learned a ton from. So it's definitely an honor, to have him around and kind of gravitate, in his new label business. So I definitely look forward, to more touring dates, with Dan, and hopefully, we'll make it out to California.
Oh
So
yeah, we would love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, It would be nice.
I have a question about Mike Stern, just quickly.
Sure.
What kind of coffee does he drink? What's his favorite coffee?
They, him and Lenny, they're serious about it. They have like a $1,500 espresso machine, so that'll mess around. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. And Lenny, is Mike's wife. She makes a killer cappuccino. So I always look forward to it. Every single time. Yeah.
Well, here's my last question then, because you mentioned coffee. When I travel on the road anywhere, I bring my Nespresso machine.
Nice.
I have one for Europe, and I have a handheld one that I can pump. So,
yeah, the AeroPress.
It's shaped like a pill, and you pump it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
My friend Glenn Zaleski got it for me, because
awesome.
everyone comes to my room in the morning because they hear and they know it's time.
Right. Yeah,
so what do you guys do? Because I like, I love traveling and be wherever you are in Europe, but it's like when I get up in the morning, I don't want to have to get up and go out and like do everything. I want to have my first cup in my room, and then I'll go have another one. So what do you guys do to get your coffee fix on the road?
Well, I have, listen, Marco's base wall is like my coffee setup. I have a problem. I have collected a coffee equipment. I've gone through 4 or 5 espresso machines in the last few years. I have an ECM machine now that is built like a tank. It is dark and syrupy like the ECM jazz label.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, is it made in Oslo or?
It's made in Heidelberg, basically Heidelberg, Germany. And it is super reverby. You drink it, it echoes. No, I have a problem, but I also I am not above drinking Green Mountain gas station coffee if I need to. So I will, wherever I go, if I have to drink coffee from a vending machine, it's fine. I'll do it. But if I can bring like an AeroPress or something with me, I will try to make it possible to drink good coffee. But fortunately, I will say that at least in Vienna, like I do a lot of traveling to Budapest or Prague or...
You're set there.
Yeah, I mean, Budapest has some of the most killing coffee I've ever drank in my life. Same with Prague. Like Eastern Europe has it going on with third wave coffee. They are crushing it. So I'm pretty set there. But otherwise, I won't be too above drinking like gas station coffee or vending machine coffee if I need to, if it's do or die.
What about you, Marco?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, it's funny you mentioned Glenn, because I've been seeing him very often because he's in the touring band, for the Dan Wilson project.
Oh, cool.
So, we played in Pittsburgh and in Ohio last week. So, we're in touch often, and I know that he's a connoisseur too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, it's like, I just try to bring an AeroPress with me, just like kind of keep it simple. But, I mean, now I'm about to go to Italy for 2 weeks.
Oh, you're going to be good there.
And yeah, I mean, when it comes to good espresso, Italy definitely, they definitely have it together there. So I'm really looking forward to having my daily espresso there.
Like if you see a sign that says espresso on the outside, you're not in for good coffee.
If you see, please take a picture of it. I have to add it to my collection.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. I'll make this short, but it's like, I don't care what strings people use, gear, I don't care. But I just, milk in coffee is a no-no for me. And we don't need to get into that. So
really? You're a purist. Okay.
Black
not
coffee,
even like
black coffee only, right? No sugar.
No sugar. Nothing.
Yeah. But what about a cortado? Cortado?
Nope. I don't do it. My husband never finishes his coffee. So later in the day, it's cold and I might put some oat milk in it. But I don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But now everybody's going to know.
No, otherwise it's like,
that's not
you
coffee.
You can beep that part out. You can bleep it. You can do anything you want.
It's like, keep it to yourself. It's like me, whenever I play a gut G string, sometimes. And, but, I'm a longtime vegan and vegetarian. So it's something that I feel really conflicted about, like
me too.
An animal product, with, but, being vegetarian and stuff.
Yeah, I feel you. Someone told me there's a new, because I'm vegan as well, and someone was like sassing me because I play olives, and but they said there's a new synthetic gut string that's vegan, coming out.
Yeah. I've seen him actually. This friend of mine from he's an English bass player who lives in Japan, Paul Dwyer. He's adopted them a few years ago, and they actually sound really good. They're a little thick, but at least that they're vegan.
Yeah. No,
So do you use no hide glue on your basses, like only Elmer's then, or
Yeah.
how do you...
No, I play my olives, and I look at my cat and I go, "You behave."
Oh shit!
And I always joke with my friends. It's like, okay, if I find out that these strings are made out of cat gut, then I'm returning them immediately.
Yeah.
Because big cat lover, so.
I love my cat too, but she needs to know every once in a while who's boss, even though I'm not.
We're never the boss. Cats have a mind of their own, always.
They sure do.
Yep.
Well, listen, this was so much fun to catch up with you all. Again, I'm really excited to hear the music, and I'm excited to see you all in person someday, hopefully soon. And this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.
Thanks. Thank you for having us on your podcast. And also, I'd like to, before we say goodbye, I'd like to thank Barry Colston, personally, because he got us on board, with this. And also last year, when we weren't working, he kept us working, by inviting us at the shop, to do live concerts there. So
Barry's,
Barry, if you're watching this, we're really thankful to you and Manny and everyone else at the shop, for really taking care of us and making it happen in very lean times. So
I'm so incredibly impressed with them, and I can't wait to go back to New York because I want to check out their new shop in Columbus Circle. Have you been there yet?
Yeah, not yet, but he invited me to go last Friday, but I was on doing those dates with Dan Wilson. But for me, it's like a less than a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to going.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, thank you both so much. Always, wishing you all good health and good bass. And I'll see you hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Bye.